Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. As many of us will be going to church today and hearing a message from God's Word, it might be that for some, there might be a misunderstanding as to how it is that the message that we hear today is going to have the greatest effect on us. Because sometimes it's believed that the way that a message from God's Word is going to have its greatest effect is if the preacher really preaches in a way that moves us. He really speaks in a way that is eloquent, a way that is impressive, just really utilizing great oratory skill and rhetoric in such a way that he's able to really move us by the way that he speaks. And we might think that that's the way that we are going to get the most benefit out of the message. All of the responsibility lies on the preacher. And what we find in our reading today is that that may not necessarily be the case. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, we find that when it comes to spiritual things, when it comes to the things revealed to us by the Spirit, it's not really dependent upon the eloquent preacher or the great oratory skills that might be demonstrated during the message, but it could actually be, the responsibility might actually be really laying upon the listeners, on the people who are actually receiving the message. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, in verse 1, or beginning in verse 1, Paul says, "And when I came to you, brethren, I did not come with superiority of speech or of wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony of God. For I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And my message and my preaching were not in persuasive words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith would not rest on the wisdom of men, but on the power of God." So the Apostle Paul said, I didn't come with great oratory skill and things like that, at least not in the way that the Greeks would have appreciated it. But he came in the demonstration of the power of the Spirit. And so there, just starting off in chapter 2, we see that maybe the responsibility isn't so much on the speaker, or at least not the full responsibility doesn't lay on the preacher, but maybe somewhere else. And we find that it actually does lay upon the shoulders of the listeners as we get to the end of chapter 2, starting in verse 14. It says, "But a natural man does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they are spiritually appraised. But he who is spiritual appraises all things, yet he himself is appraised by no one. For who has known the mind of the Lord that he will instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ." And so here the Apostle Paul says, and this follows through with the whole chapter, but this is kind of like the summary of it all. The Apostle Paul says here that if we're really going to receive the treasures from God's Word, it's not going to be so much dependent on how it's presented, but how it's received. And if we are spiritual people, if we are really in tune to the things of the Spirit, if we're open to God's Spirit and open to the things revealed by God's Spirit and His Word, and if we're really in tune with God and we're walking before the Lord in a spiritual way, and we're connected to the Spirit by setting our minds on the Spirit and not necessarily looking for a message as the world would receive and looking for things that the world would want, but really just trying to find those precious truths revealed to us, then that person is going to be the one who is benefited by God's Word and the message given by God's Word. However, if we approach listening to the message in a way in which we're just simply trying to be moved emotionally, or we're just trying to, receive some type of elaborate, explanation of some type of truth or something like that, or we just want to hear some stories that entertain us, whatever the case may be, and we're just looking for a message from a worldly standpoint, from a natural standpoint, we're not going to really treasure the actual spiritual truth that may be embedded in those things. And we're not going to really be benefited by it because we're simply approaching it from the wrong direction. And so my encouragement would be, and I think we get this encouragement from 1 Corinthians chapter 2, is that as we go to church today and as we listen to a message from God's word, let's go there first checking ourselves and making sure that we are approaching it in a spiritual way and that we're truly seeking the things of the Spirit, not just trying to have our ears tickled or our emotions stirred or anything like that. Of course, it's good if a person can present the truths of God's word in a very profound way, in a very eloquent way, in a way that does move the audience. But that shouldn't be what we completely trust in or what we're completely looking to. But we're really looking for those spiritual truths that God has revealed to us through his Spirit. And a spiritual person is really trying to connect to those spiritual things that lay underneath the message, the way that the message is presented. So let's do that today. Let's go to church. Let's listen to the message, making sure that our hearts are in the right place, that we're looking at it from the right perspective. And when we do so, we'll find ourselves greatly benefited and spiritually enriched and helped so that we can be built up and prepared and equipped for the upcoming week. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. I hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.